Hello there, this is Janet Roper, and I'm an animal communicator and an educator, and I welcome you to our monthly conference call. It's Thursday, November 17th in the year 2016, and tonight we are talking about a touchy subject, which is pet grief and the holidays. Now, I have everyone muted now, but later on I'm going to be inviting all of you to join in the conversation to talk specifically about the issues that you're experiencing with pet grief and the holidays. So at that time, it'll probably be like the last 15 minutes. At that time, you can enter your questions into the chat room, or if you're here live, you can also ask them, because I will unmute you at that time. But anyway, there will be time to have questions and answers about what you're specifically experiencing, either in past holidays or in the upcoming holiday with pet grief. And, you know, before we get started, before we dive in, I really want to thank everybody for being here tonight, because it takes a lot of courage to show up for a topic like this. It takes a lot of courage to show up for a topic where we're talking about, you know, two really diverse subjects. We're talking about pet grief, and our hearts can be breaking over that. And pet grief can be whether you've experienced it in the past or if this is the first holiday season without your beloved animal pal. But also, we're talking about the festivities of the holidays. And the festivities are supposed to be fun. Everybody is supposed to have a good time. And sometimes when we're not having a good time, if we're at a party, our host might start saying, "Why aren't you having a good time? What can I do to help you?" That kind of thing. So we can feel kind of forced into betraying our emotions of what we're feeling to not sell ourselves out, but to fall into the trap of the holiday festivities. That's probably a better way of putting it. So tonight we're going to be talking about ways that we can circumvent that, of feeling like we need to, and I'll go back to the original term that I used, sell ourselves out, sell our pet grief out, so to speak, so that we're all holly and jolly and merry during the holiday season. We'll be talking about ways to circumvent that so that it is possible to experience pet grief during the holiday season and feel like you are being honest and true with yourself. Because the biggest thing, as you all know, we want our animals to live forever, at least forever, if not longer than that. And as a part of life, as a part of human life, it is simply not possible for that to happen, because we all have a limited time here on Earth. Through my years of animal communication, and gosh, I've been doing it, 15, 20 years, something like that. One of the things that I've noticed is that the area where folks have the hardest time talking about their animals, and also the area where it is most needed to have conversations about what we're feeling and what we're experiencing, is in the area of pet grief. And people are really, I find, quite reticent to talk about the grief that they are experiencing, and that's understandable. Because first of all, it's private. It's very private, the feelings that we have about our animals as they pass over. And it's also very private because with each animal, it's different. I know that when my first cat, Pookie, and this was before I got into animal communication, and Pookie was the first, actually she was the first animal pal I had in my life, because I was not allowed to have them have pets when I was growing up. So the only animal experience I received growing up was when we would go down to my grandparents' farm and spend the weekends. And I just loved it, because we would drive the 3.5 hours from Springfield, Illinois, down to Southern Illinois. And as soon as we pulled in that gravel driveway, the 3 dogs that my grandparents had would come out barking at us. And I thought that was just the coolest thing on the face of the earth. It was the welcoming. And the dog that I considered my own, his name was Cappy. And I don't even remember, because I was a kid then. I don't remember what kind of dog he was. He was black and white, and I considered him my dog. And he had an attitude, which is probably why I considered him my dog. But I remember that he would go out and that he would pee on each one of the tires. And I just thought that was the coolest thing on the face of the earth, to be able to have an animal that did that. And I didn't have animals growing up. So like I say, Pookie being my own first animal companion that I got after I was 40 years old. She made a big impact on me. And that first holiday season without her, it was horrendous. I didn't know how to operate. I didn't know how to get through the days without her. I was so used to having her around. And she's the one who taught me how to be in relationship with animals, but most specifically with cats. And even more specifically than that, she taught me how to be in relationship with cats who, again, going back to having that attitude, cats who had that attitude, and everything just had to be done her way. And so that first holiday without her, I wasn't even a basket case. I would have had to have improved to be a basket case. So I've had many animals pass over since Pookie passed over. I want to say that was maybe 1998, maybe 2000, something like that. And since then, I've had many animals pass over. And I've learned that with each one, it's a different experience. It's a very different experience. So with each one and having that different experience, the way I would experience during the holiday season was, of course, different from that too. And of course, one of the things about talking about pet grief in the holidays is that, let's face it, folks, it's a downer. It is a downer subject, and nobody wants to hear about it. And nobody wants to, be at a party where somebody is crying because they are missing their animal pal. So as we are invited to parties, as we are going out into the festivities, we learn that we have to hide our feelings. And we learn that we have to put on that smiling face and to, quote unquote, act appropriate. And in our culture, in our society, acting appropriate when it comes to grief usually means denying it. There are few places that I can think of off the top of my head that really, discounting support groups, okay? In the run-of-the-mill, everyday, going through your life, there are a few places that I can think of that truly support us as we are grieving. And it's tough. It's tough, particularly there with the holidays. But the thing is, here's the kicker about it, is that while the festivities are going on, when we're experiencing grief, we still are going through that experience, and we still need to talk about it. And we still need to have that grief acknowledged in some way. So tonight we're going to be talking about ways that, as I said earlier, we can attend festivities. May not be the same way that we've done in years past, that's for sure. But we can allow some of the festivity into our life as we are grieving. And then another thing that I want to mention before we get too much further into this is that grief can mean many things, or the reasons for the grief. It can be because the animal is in hospice, isn't getting ready to pass on over. It can be that the animal has already passed over. It could be remembering the grief from an animal, a beloved animal, or animals who's passed over years ago. And it can also be because maybe we've had to surrender an animal for circumstances beyond our control. And that is an incredible burden of grief to have to carry. So whatever the cause of the grief is, it can still hit us really doubly hard during the holiday season. So one of the things that I want to talk about tonight, um, as far as taking care of ourselves during the holiday season and nurturing our grief, so to speak, is going to be about self-care. And I can just hear it right now. I can see everybody's going, oh, Janet, I'm taking good care of myself. Ah, yeah, I know all these things about self-care. I know I'm supposed to be doing it, but I've got to do thus and such first. I've got to take my dog to the vet first. Then I'll take good care of myself. And you know what, folks? I've been down that road myself too. I've been down that road so many times, it's not even funny. So I hear what you're saying. And when you're listening to me, okay, say, yeah, you got to take good care of yourself. I just know that some of you going, I can't hear you, that kind of thing. But even though you've probably heard it 1,000,007 times, this is going to be your 1,000,008th time of hearing it. Because that self-care, it is what gives us strength to go out into the world, so to speak, and to negotiate our way through the world, through all those festivities, through the holidays, which is at such odds with what we are feeling. So with the self-care, and of course, with pet grief, it brings up those uncomfortable feelings of, did I do enough? Could I have done more? Does my pet love me? Does my pet understand why I had to do what I did? I had no other choice. And we can really feel inadequate and unprepared when it comes to that self-talk of how to handle it and how to nurture ourselves through it. But it's important that we learn how to do it. So for self-care, particularly through the holidays, it's really valuable because it's going to prevent, or at least help prevent, overload and burnout of thinking, oh my gosh, I've just got to go get one more gift. Oh my gosh, I've just got to do this. And just feeling like you don't even have the energy to put one foot in front of the other, much less to get in the car and go through the crowds, go to the stores and go through the crowds of everyone who's out having a happy holiday, and then having to hear the Christmas music, the holiday music on top of that. It's tough. It's tough. So with the self-care, when we're taking care of ourselves during the holidays, it can give us the strength to go into those places where we don't really want to go, but we need to go, or we feel we need to go, for obligation or for tradition's sake, whatever kind of thing. And the self-care can also reduce the negative effects that we have of stress. And each one of us experiences stress differently. Myself, I will get sick to my stomach. I will get headaches. I will also feel like I need to just really sleep. When I'm experiencing stress, about the only thing I want to do is sleep. And, that might be a nap during the day. That might be going to bed earlier, sleeping later in the morning. But it affects all of us differently. So while that is how stress affects me, it may not affect you that way. You might get less sleep, okay? While my energy tends to get down, your energy might tend to get hyped up. So the important thing of self-care is knowing how the stress affects us and knowing how we react to it so that we can go in there and we can really dig in, so to speak, and take solid, good care of ourselves, because that is top priority. The other reason that self-care is so valuable during the holiday season is because it helps us refocus. Okay, it takes us out for, even if it's just for 5 minutes, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe even half a day, maybe even a day. It takes us out of that, oh my gosh, that feeling of guilt, and if only I had just done that one thing. If I had just done that one thing, why didn't I think of that when it was happening? So with the self-care, it really does build us up, so to speak, to go out into the real world and function in a more comfortable place than we might be without that self-care. So in a nutshell, the self-care, it's going to help with burnout and help with overload. You know, when you're feeling, I just can't do it. I've got so much to do. I just can't get it done. It will reduce the negative effects of stress, which could be physical, emotional, could be mental even, and it helps you refocus. Typically, if you're doing self-care during the holidays or any time, but most particularly during the holidays, you can expect to feel better. Now, I'm not saying on a scale of 1 to 10 that you're going to be going from a 2 to a 10, with 10 being high and 2 being low, okay? But I am saying that if you're feeling like a 4 or a 5, maybe you'll get up to a 6 or a 7. You'll have that much more energy that is supporting you as you are going through the holiday season. With self-care, you can also expect to feel less guilt because, again, that's going to help you refocus. That basic taking care of yourself is going to help you refocus and to realign and to just feel more in connection, not only with yourself, but with your animal pal, your angel animal pal, or your animal pal who is getting ready to transition over. And the self-care can help us be more productive, engaged, and connected. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be feeling as productive or as engaged or as connected as you would if you were not experiencing the grief. I am not saying that at all. Okay, because we do need to honor our grief and we do need to honor our emotions as we are going through that grief and our experiences as we are going through that grief, okay? But what I am saying is that when we have that self-care, when we are taking good care of ourselves, that it's another notch in our tool belt, so to speak, to help us feel at least a little bit better. Now, what is self-care? And the answer to what is self-care is that it's different for each one of us. And that's the trick in it, okay? Self-care is different for each one of us. So what works for one person may not work for another person. Perfect example, okay? About the only time I like to go shopping in the real world is if I'm going to the Apple store, if I'm going to a bookstore, or if I'm going to a tack store. And I can handle those situations when I'm going out shopping, okay? The holiday season, if I have to go out shopping, I'm going to be going at a time when there are no crowds, when I can basically get in, get out, and get home, because holiday shopping wears me down to the bones, literally. Literally, I come home and I just want to melt into a puddle. I always come home from holiday shopping. It's like, okay, I'm getting that closest tea, whatever it is. I'm going to make me a nice hot tea to drink. And I'm going to be taking care of myself by drinking tea. However, there are other people who love to go shopping and it invigorates them. So if you are one of those people who loves to go shopping, that could be definitely a form of self-care for you. That could be a way of taking care of yourself that energizes you, that gets you engaged and takes you away from the grief so that you have time to build yourself up. And please understand, folks, when I say it takes you away from the grief, I am not speaking of denial. I am not speaking of sweeping your grief under the rug. I am just saying you are taking time for yourself to recharge, to re-energize, and to revigorate yourself. And after all, you know what? If you were to ask your animal pal, they would want you to do that for yourself. The animals, and they've told me this, I cannot tell you how many countless times the animals have told me that they only want us to take at least as good care of ourselves as we did of them. Think of that, folks. The animals, your beloved animal angel, your beloved animal pal who is getting ready to transition, your beloved animal pal that you had to surrender through no fault, through nothing that you did, through circumstances beyond your control. They are only asking us to take as good care of ourselves as we did of them. Now, how much love is there in that? So to get started with self-care, it sounds so simple to say, well, just go do it. But when we're grieving, life is not that simple to just go do it. Because basically, if we could just go do it, we would just go do it. That kind of thing. So how to get started with self-care is to plan it out, okay? If you know that you've got a weekend, okay? For example, you've got a weekend or an evening, let's say, an evening where you have nothing planned. Use that for self-care. Put your self-care, your own self-care into your planner so that you can take care of yourself. Put it in there, because I know that, well, for me, most of the people that I know of, if it's in the planner or if it's on the calendar, I'm going to do it. If it's when I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'll remember to go take good care of myself. Yeah, I'll remember that. Of course I won't forget that, because I'm going to go take good care of myself. I can guarantee you, folks, 100% of the time when I think of it like that, I don't forget, I ignore it, because I allow something else to get in the way of taking care of myself. So I have found it helpful that when I've got some extra time that I want to devote to self-care, I just put it in on the calendar. And self-care, again, it's different things for different folks, okay? It could be a hot bath. It could be listening to music. And, maybe if you're listening to music, maybe you want to listen to classical music. Somebody else wants to listen to music as self-care. Classical music might drive them up on the wall. Maybe they want to listen to jazz and blues. So self-care is whatever invigorates you. And whenever you are there, you just have this feeling of, it just feels so good to be here. When I am taking good self-care of myself, I am in a place where time collapses. And I really do have that feeling of just, I don't know if any of you on here will remember the Calgon commercials, bubble bath commercials. Oh, years ago. They were years ago. But it was Take Me Away Calgon. And it showed this woman in the tub. And she was just so relaxed. And you could tell that all the stresses of the day were just literally being, washed away from her, so to speak, in the tub. But that's what self-care feels like to me. Everything is just washed away. I am in my own place, and I am in a place where I can nurture whatever my needs are. Sometimes those needs are to listen to music. Sometimes they're to read a book. Sometimes they are to crash and cry. And if you are feeling the need to crash and cry, and what I mean by that, you just need to go, I can't do anything more. I cannot do anything more. I need time to myself, and I need time to actually physically cry and experience my grief that way, then please do so. Because crashing and crying, and sometimes I'll call it tea and tears. Crashing and crying for me is when I just totally have that meltdown, and I'm a puddle on the floor, figuratively speaking, experiencing my grief that way. With the tea and tears, it's where I'm more, I can pull myself together faster. And yes, I am still grieving, but there's a part of me that says, okay, I'm still grieving, but I don't need to be by myself so that I'm actually crashing and crying. So be in tune with what your body, whether it's your physical body, your mental body, or your emotional body, is asking of you during this time of the holidays and during the time of pet grief as you're experiencing it through the holidays. And then, of course, and I can just hear, I know people are just saying, no, I can't do that. Say no. It is perfectly okay to say no to obligations, to invitations, to things that you don't want to do. Saying no is really a big step in self-care. And it, to me, anyway, it didn't happen overnight. I still practice it. But let me tell you, folks, I'm a heck of a lot better at saying no than what I used to be. After my dog Teddy had passed away, and granted, this was in October, so this was like at the beginning of the holidays, so to speak. The Halloween and then into Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. That when he passed away, my neighbors, and oh my gosh, they were just the nicest neighbors on the face of the earth. They invited me over for dinner that night, the day that I had taken him to the last call to the vet, and that's Max, if you heard anything rattling. And what I had to do for my own self-care was to say thank you, but no thank you. I need to be at home by myself. I'm happy to take a rain check. And oh my gosh, I was so happy to take a rain check because they're like the best cooks on the face of the earth. And they just had like the best meals on the face of the earth, and there was always a wine and there was always an after dinner drink. And it was just really a lot of fun to be with them. And as much as I loved being with them, that time was not the time for me to be with them. So I graciously declined. I stayed home and I definitely had a crash and cry evening. And then eventually I did take them up on that rain check and did go over there for dinner. But learn to say no. And I know you've heard this before too, and I'm still learning this, okay? Probably I'm going to be learning it to the end of my days, just of me being who I am. But no is a complete sentence. And if you are feeling like you have to say something else besides no, you can always say, no, thank you. That doesn't work for me right now. Let me get back to you. No, thank you. I really appreciate the invitation. Can I take a rain check on it? So no doesn't mean that it's boom, gone, done. You're never going back to it. No just basically means no, thank you, not at this time. So this might sound kind of silly too, but sometimes it helps to practice saying no in front of the mirror. And if that's something you need to do, go ahead and do it. It's okay. It really is okay. Because remember, you are grieving, you are experiencing grief for a beloved family member. It just happens that they've got wings or tails or forelegs or fins or scales, whatever. You are experiencing grief at a time of the year when it is extremely difficult to experience grief because of all the expectations, the societal expectations, cultural expectations, and family expectations that are put upon us. And if you need to write a little script and have something ready to go in the back of your mind, that's a cool thing to do. You can do that also. So the other thing about self-care is to believe that you deserve it. Okay, because you do. You really do. You do have a responsibility to take care of yourself. But also go back, okay, to what I said a little bit earlier, is that the animals only ask us to take as much care of ourselves as we did of them. They're only asking us that much. We don't have to wallow in the self-care. Okay, we don't have to take a deep dive into the self-care, but 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, doing that a little bit every day, that's really going to make a big difference. And you can tune in with your animals and see what they have to say about it, You'll get a gut feeling. You're in tune with your animals. If you weren't in tune with your animals, you wouldn't be experiencing grief that is this raw and this deep. So be in tune with them. Ask them, if they're okay with you taking 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour to take care of yourself. You might be surprised at how they say, oh yeah, please do. We've been wanting you to do that. So number one thing about pet grief in the holidays is self-care. That brings up holiday traditions. And traditions go back for years. they can go back for decades. And with family traditions, we're talking generational. So there's a lot of weight underneath that of following through with those traditions. As we're experiencing pet grief, it's really important to remember that the traditions they can't be. They're no longer what they used to be. They can't be because your life is different now. Your life is different because you have lost a beloved animal pal, or in the process of it. You are grieving a beloved animal pal. So your life is different now. And the traditions most probably may not have the same meaning for you as they did in the past. Now, having said that, it goes back to each one of us experiences the grief differently. Some people may really need to dive into those traditions. Some people may need to take a step back from those traditions, but honor whichever way you need it. Honor that. And don't try to fake it till you make it. Okay? If it helps you to have a traditional holiday party at this time, do so. Do so. If it helps you to not put out some of the holiday decorations, don't do it. Remember to take care of yourself first, and that it goes back to the animals only want us to take as good self-care of ourselves as we took care of them. You can tweak your expectations of the traditions. That might be not listening to music or listening to a different type of music. If you have a tradition that you've always had with your dog of going out for a walk on Christmas Eve, maybe something that you can do is go out for a walk with a neighbor's dog, if that helps you. If it doesn't, don't do it. Maybe it would help you to ask one of the humane societies or the rescues, one of your local humane societies or rescues, if you could do some volunteer work there. If that helps you, do it. If it doesn't help you, don't do it. If in tweaking a holiday tradition, you just really need to say, I can't do it. I can't do it at all. I can't even tweak it. Okay? Much less participate in it. Honor that. Because the important thing about pet grief and the holidays, folks, is honoring what you are feeling. Honoring what you are feeling and taking care of yourself. One of the things that really helps in honoring the relationship that we've had with our animal pals, with our angel animals, is to creating a memorial. And that is bearing witness. That is bearing physical, real-world witness to the relationship that you had, that you still have in a different way if you have an angel animal, that you had or have with your beloved animal pal. Creating a memorial is going to bear witness that you did everything you could in your power to take care of that animal to the best of your ability. And as you create that memorial, whatever it might be a photo album, it might be painting a picture, it might be making a collage, it might be just something as simple as going out and buying flowers. It could be something like donating to the local humane society, or if you have a dog who really loved to chase tennis balls at the local dog park, maybe go out and get some tennis balls, purchase some tennis balls for the dogs there at the local park. But when you're creating that memorial, it's taking the emotions that you are experiencing, the relationship that you experienced with your animal pal, and you are still doing in a different way, and it's putting it into the real world. So you have something concrete, something tangible that you can look at, something tangible that you can, as you walk past it, you can touch it, bringing you in connection with your animal pal. And it is a physical reminder of all that you have shared together through the years, and through the years that will be coming as your animal is an angel pal. Now, I'm still the only one on the call. So I was going to open it up for questions, but there's no one here to open it up to. So what I will say is as you are listening to this at home, what has this call opened up for you that you want to learn more about? What has this call opened up for you that maybe you were not aware that you were experiencing in your grief? What has this call opened up for you that you want to take a part of this? And maybe it's like building a memorial, creating a memorial, and you want to learn more about it, more how to do that. If there's anything that's been opened up for you on this call, what I'm going to invite you to do is to get a copy of my book, Grieving Your Pet Over the Holidays, the ebook and the MP3 package. And what that is a package that is created to help those of us who are experiencing pet grief over the holidays. It helps us to know that we're not alone, and it also gives suggestions and resources on ways that you can cope with your grief this holiday season and still participate to whatever degree you feel comfortable in the holiday traditions and the holiday expectations that you might be experiencing this holiday season. But I also created it so that you know that you do not have to go through this holiday season experiencing the grief of your animal pal by yourself. So in the ebook, you will be finding tips for self-care. I talked about some of them tonight, but you're actually going to be getting much more in there, many more ideas on how you can take care of yourself. You're also going to get ideas on how to deal with holiday traditions. Again, I touched on it tonight, but the ebook and the MP3 go into much more detail. And then creating a memorial for your animal pal goes into much more detail with that too. Talking about why it is so important to bear witness and how that changes any guilt or any bad feelings you might be having over how you tried to help your animal pal. And also in the ebook, not in the MP3, but in the ebook, there are exercises to help you create new routines for the holidays or to tweak old routines that you have. You'll also hear about, and some of you have heard this before, about what I've learned from death and the dying process and from my angel horse, Shiloh. And there's also resources in both the ebook and I believe the MP3 if you need further support than that. So I'm going to invite you to go over to my website, janet@janetroper.com, and go to products, and you will see Grieving Your Pet Over the Holidays. You will see that ebook. It's for $27.50. Since you are on the call tonight, you will be receiving a 10% discount when you enter the code PGHCALL11. And that expires on Saturday, the 19th of this month. So if tonight has left you wanting anything more, feeling like you need something more, feeling like you've just started the journey of really acknowledging the grief that you've experiencing, or you're left feeling like I really need to be armed, so to speak, on how I can prepare myself for the holiday season that is coming up, please go over to my website, janet@janetroper.com. Go to the products, and there you will see the pet grief, Grieving Your Pet Over the Holidays, the ebook and the MP3. It's one of the first things that you'll see there. It's normally $27.50. You receive a 10% discount when you use the code PGHCALL11. So I will be sending you the download of this and also the code to use for the pet grief and the holidays book. I wish all of you the very best, and if there's anything that I can do to help you, just let me know. Thanks so much for signing up this call. Have a good evening.